Thank you for joining Catholic Gen X. We believe that reading Cliff Notes still counts as reading the book.
That's right.
No.
But not a video.
That's right.
Well, they change it. The video, you can't count on that.
No, that's right.
So, do you guys remember the great 80s movie, The Natural?
Oh, yeah.
I know you don't like the sports ball so much, but...
Yeah.
So, I loved that movie, and so I decided I was going to read the book. I just finished it this weekend. I got to tell you, Roy Hobbs in the book, not the same guy as Roy Hobbs in the movie. Roy Hobbs,
you made a lot of
more of a womanizer.
Right. They were trying to make a family-friendly movie.
That's right.
So, my point, if you're writing your book report, which I don't think they give those to kids anymore, which I don't understand, book reports, that was a big part of my childhood.
Yeah. It's like write a video report or something like that.
Well, no, I mean, I'm just saying you can't watch the movie. When you said video, I assumed you meant watch the movie. Gotta be careful.
I had no idea. It was like that salty. I love the movie.
It's no. It's not. I mean, there's some sex in it, but it's not graphic. It's just, it's just kind of matter of fact. He went back to her hotel room, whatever.
Right.
But in the movie, Roy Hobbs is not a womanizer at all.
No,
He's like, the pure country boy. And in the book,
he resists Kim Basinger. So,
is she the one who shot him?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he ends up with Glenn
So
Close.
the movie's the same way. Do you want me to ruin the book for you? Because I'm guessing you're never going to read it.
Never going to read it.
So in the movie, remember how he bleeds at the end and it's the old gunshot wound? In the book, he gets sick because he develops this weird psycho thing and he just eats incessantly and can't stop. And so he's at this party and he gorges himself and then he leaves and he feels like he wants more to eat, so he goes and eats 6 hamburgers.
Oh, gosh.
And then he ends up in the hospital because he's overeaten for...
Yeah, that'll do it. As I like to say, one cheeseburger away from a heart attack.
Yeah.
Wow, they gave him some Thorazine.
And so
to pump his
then,
stomach,
remember the judge, the character of the judge, he didn't. So the judge tries to get him to throw the game, and he agrees to do it. But then he changes his mind, but he's in such bad shape, he strikes out anyway. But he had changed his mind, and he wasn't really going to do it. So the end of the book is he goes up and gives the judge his money back and smacks him in the head, knocks his wig off, and then the book's just kind of over.
Yeah, that would have been a terrible movie. Terrible movie.
That is time you cannot get back, Tom. So
Yeah.
Okay, so off the top of your head, what would you say are probably the top 5 of your favorite 80s albums?
Well, this is easy. Number 1. Should we start with 5 or number 1?
I don't know if you can do it in order, if you're able to rank that quickly.
Well, number 1 is easy. I've said a lot about this. I feel like I've backed myself into a corner. I can't say anything but the number 1 album, not just of the 80s, but of all time. Do you know what I'm going to say?
Rick Astley.
I have no idea.
Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great album.
That. Yeah. I always think of you, you're a Metallica fan, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of surprised it's not whatever album Sandman was on.
No. That's when they started to... No, that's
Okay.
they're still
You
out
just cut
period.
them when
I'm
you said
older
that,
Metallica. Kill 'Em All is a very fine album
All right.
also. I would probably put that on my top 5. I would, and I will die on this hill, I would put Prince's Purple Rain.
Oh,
That
I
is
would
a
have put in that too.
fantastic album.
Yeah, no, that's a genius album.
And the other thing about us as Gen Xers and children of the 80s, you got to have some soundtracks on there. Because
Okay.
there were great soundtracks.
That's a good
and
point.
The Footloose soundtrack was fantastic.
That is very good.
I know I'm a little bit all over
That's
the place
good.
here.
That's all Kenny Loggins did for the 80s.
Oh,
Caddyshack,
yeah, but how memorable.
yeah, Top Gun.
Danger Zone, yeah.
He did quite a
So
bit.
I've got 4.
Over the Top. Maybe halfway.
My oldest,
lesser known.
My
It's a
oldest
B-side.
loved that movie when he was 5-6 years old.
Do you still turn your head around? It's like turning on the
No.
switch and drink
So
a
I'm
quart
open.
of water?
I'm open to suggestions for my 5th. What have I left out here?
I mean, part of it is I wasn't permitted.
Did The Cure turn out 5 albums in the 80s? Because if they did,
They had
that's...
some albums. Cure was a big deal back in the day.
Part of it is I'm not quite sure. I didn't buy albums in the 80s. Was not allowed to, really. I had a couple of singles. One just came up the other day. Martika, Toy Soldiers.
Oh,
Came up at my house the other night.
That was it. I thought maybe it was with you guys. But, I don't think you can not have Thriller on
I have
top
it on the list,
5,
too.
right?
I cannot argue with that as my 5th.
Yeah. So that would be what?
Huey Lewis and New Sports.
No.
That's a very good album, too. That was big. Kind of pop rock.
Was London Calling by The Clash.
No, that's big.
I think that's a huge and important and good album.
Had you said something by Duran Duran, I likely would have accepted that.
What was their big...
Tom's bumper sticker says Rio Forever.
80s, was it Hungry Like a Wolf? No. Was it?
Yeah, it was
like
one of them.
Yeah.
How do you feel about some of the ones I said, though?
I thought you would say Midnight Oil. Because
Midnight Oil, no, they had one fantastic song, one good song, and then a whole bunch of shit nobody ever listened to.
That's true.
Well, Purple Rain is the superior album. Another both great Prince album and soundtrack was, but this may have been 1990, 91 maybe.
Under the Cherry Moon?
No, the original soundtrack to the first Batman
That was
movie.
89.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like we had
with
this
the devil in the pale
Prince-
We
moonlight.
talked about
We
this
did.
at my house,
We
didn't
did.
Prince did that whole thing.
So,
Yes.
Purple Rain is a superior album.
Yes.
Under the Cherry Moon is a superior movie.
Oh,
I haven't
yeah.
seen the movie. Man.
It's better than Purple Rain.
Yes.
Purple
It's
Rain
got
movie
Morris
is
Day in
terrible.
the time.
That's
what
good.
time is it?
Yeah, that's good. I also had In Excess Kick.
Nope.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good 80s album. If we're going to go Australian, we're going to go In Excess.
I agree with that.
And that was a great kind of like later 80s.
Yeah.
Like a lot
Although
of big hits on that.
I will take your NXS and raise you Men at Work.
I would say I like Men at Work a lot. I don't know what a Vegemite sandwich is.
You know, pretty soon I'm just going to slap down AC/DC.
Right.
Well, I mean, AC/DC could be in there too, but it's also Brian Johnson singing at this point. Was it Bon Scott? Was that his name?
Yeah.
The first singer that died? I certainly had Thriller. NWA Straight Outta Compton was a big one.
Oh, yeah.
I was more of a Beastie Boys, Licensed to Ill kind of guy. I wasn't quite as angry as you, John. I was more...
Well, I mean, for like a white kid in the suburbs or the east side, even back then, it was like this is like
A revelation.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
never heard anything like this in my
Right.
life.
I
I'm
agree.
not saying it was good, but it was a different experience that
Do you guys have Apple TV?
No.
I did for a while.
It's only $5. I don't know what it is a month, but you can get it and drop it. If you decide to get it, I encourage you to watch a 3-part series they did on. Wait, maybe it wasn't Apple TV. It might have been Hulu. Anyway, Run DMC.
Oh.
It's a 3-part series on Run DMC.
I like Run DMC.
Did you know that the big producer that everybody hates from the 80s?
Rick Rubin,
No, Rick Rubin was one of their producers.
Quincy Jones.
No.
Nobody hates Quincy Jones.
Well, I
do they?
didn't know.
No,
Tom
nobody
hates
hates
a lot of
Quincy Jones,
things.
but this guy, daggone it, if I can think of his name, he was partners with Rick Rubin and a lot of stuff, and ended up, I think he screwed Rick Rubin out of some money.
Good story.
Yeah.
You know, you
keep
always
talking.
need to end the
Let me
story
get-
with it,
let
and then
me
I
get-
found $20.
Tom's
Let me
leaving
get-
an encyclopedia out.
Let
so
me
we'll
get
look
the
it up.
Google out. Keep talking.
So I had a lot of the same ones. I think Prince Purple Rain is incredible. I can't believe you didn't say U2 Joshua Tree.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't name 5. I kind of...
Well, we kind of scabbed on
Oh,
it.
Right.
Russell Simmons.
Oh, yeah.
Rev Run from Run
He did?
DMC is Russell Simmons' brother.
I knew that.
I did not know
I did
that.
not know that.
He had was
One
he
of the
one
most
that Bad Boy
likable
record?
guys around and one of
Right.
the most unlikable guys around.
I didn't know that he was kind of burning a lot of bridges. Huh.
Russell Simmons?
Oh, yeah.
He's pretty hated.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I mean, Russell Simmons, if you're a listener, we'd love your advertising dollars. And I think you're just fine.
We are willing to change our opinions.
But it's my understanding that some people don't like you.
We're at the age now, though, like where Tom and our kids like would listen to some of this kind of music and stuff like that too. And it's different now as a father because when you're a kid, you don't some things you don't really know what
Right.
you know. Like some things, like some of the songs in Purple Rain's album, stuff like that.
Oh, Darling Nikki?
Yeah. You didn't quite understand that and just different things. And now, at least I look at it differently. It's like, don't listen to this, don't listen to this. And I think part of it is of where, young people, music is one of the ways they kind of explore things, but trying to keep them on the road.
You know, this is mildly embarrassing, but like another formative album for me from the 80s, Slippery When Wet.
Oh, that's not embarrassing
Right.
at all.
That
Well, I
was,
guess you
solidly
said
get behind
Guns
that.
N' Roses, so I can say...
Oh, whoa.
yeah.
Whoa.
Tom would have said Poison, which I expected that.
I like Poison. Poison is like that guilty pleasure music, right? Like you
Right.
didn't listen to it with your buddies, but
I don't know a solid Poison album, but what was that breakout mega ballad?
Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
yeah. Look what the Cat dragged in. Yeah, they had some good albums.
They kind of copied from Motley Crue. They just weren't as good.
They were so here. In my opinion, this is kind of the way the hard rock went. You had Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Poison, Bon Jovi, and then you got into all the nonsense of Winger and Warrant and all that was unlistenable.
Faster Pussycat.
Faster Pussycat had a couple good songs, though. Faster Pussycat was getting into skater music.
Right.
And I don't think if you grew up in the 80s, you have any idea what
No.
skater music
What about
is,
the
but we all know what
Right.
that is,
Did
right?
you put the Scorpions in there?
Winds of Change,
That was a
one of
solid
the greatest
tune.
political songs
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. We should like Father Peter has his lighter out now. We should start listening. That's a pretty good list.
Yeah.
So Tom has a topic he wanted to bring up.
Yeah. So I've been.
You know it's a big deal when a week before we're recording, Tom texts that he has a topic.
Well,
It's very
yeah.
serious.
So you guys know I have my morning ritual where I read, and I just in the last few weeks finished a book about Saint Anthony.
Okay.
Oh,
And it's the life of Anthony that was written by Athanasius,
Right.
who was one of his contemporaries.
right.
You two both have a background in mental health. John,
Yes.
obviously,
I do.
big
I have
background
some.
in mental health. Do you ever think about how in modern times we would view somebody like St. Anthony?
Oh, yeah. Well, like, recently, this is embarrassing, Sunday, was the feast of St. John Vianney, who is the patron saint of priests, particularly parish priests. And I think he's kind of crazy. Lived on, like, moldy potatoes and vinegar wine and, like, had all these experiences fighting with the devil late at night.
So that's what Anthony had.
Right. And I'm not able or willing to speak about these experiences with the devil, but I'm like, well, you know, if I probably lived mostly on moldy potatoes and vinegary wine, I'd have some experiences too.
You might be
know?
angry seeing some
Right?
things, and now.
But it's just kind of, I think about this in lots of contexts, but this is one of them, and how the world has changed.
Yes.
And if somebody came into your office and sat down and said, Dr. John,
They
had
don't address you like that.
I
do they?
had six demons show up at my house last night in the shape of animals, and I fought them until dawn. I mean, your first reaction wouldn't be to view them like Anthony was viewed in his day.
I think my response would be I would want to learn more. I mean, the way that I would look at it is I take everybody very seriously. And I would want to understand more like about what it was and why in the context and things like that too.
This is why John continues to be a successful psychologist, and I had to find another vocation.
That's
Well,
right.
You know that I think I could be a mystic.
We
Right.
do know that you think that.
But
Yes.
there's no
Although you don't have any gifts of the Holy Spirit.
there's no real place in the world for mystics anymore.
Well,
I don't think that's true.
So I think there's a couple of things here, Tom. One is I think in reality, the devil has changed his approach because the world has become much less open to supernatural phenomenon in many, many ways, right? So I think in many ways the devil is less showy than he was when people were expecting.
He doesn't need to be because media propels us like movies. I was talking to my oldest son about this of where like why do you always go see scary movies, you know, with your girlfriend? And I understand like the age part of that. But he was talking about one recently of where it sounded like it started to get into I think a lot of movies now are either, you know, like chaos, anarchy kinds of things, or it's like very satanic.
Right.
Like, you know, that kind of stuff too. So it's not as hidden in that kind of way, like needing to see the supernatural in ways that are, you know, kind of scary or enticing. You just turn on the TV.
Right.
Well, your point is good because this is probably bad, but I really enjoy the movie Devil's Advocate
Sure.
with Al Pacino
Right.
and
Keanu Reeves.
But I find the Al Pacino character in that movie fairly believable.
Yes.
And you're right. He's not wowing anybody with. He's just kind of the puppet master.
Right.
So that's I will accept your.
Yeah.
See, but the Catholic psychologist part of it is where, and I do get some referrals, not from our exorcist, but I'll consult with him, or I consulted with a demonologist actually not too long ago about something.
Don't tell my middle son, because if the whole pirate career doesn't work out, that's his second choice.
Well, I mean, so part of it is, as a Catholic psychologist, I'm looking at this primarily through the lens of science, because in Catholicism, the anthropology is the foundation of all of it. So I know that I don't know everything, and I have to take people seriously, because regardless of the precision or the truth of that, it's still people's experience. And that's kind of where I start. So if somebody said 5 demons or whatever, it wouldn't be just some like real response, because I also believe that those things can happen, but I also have to look at the most simple, the natural explanation first, which is like really my role as a psychologist.
Which is what the church instructs us to do.
Have you ever seen anything about the office that the church has at Fatima? That their whole job is to investigate the miracles, and throw out the ones that are like, yeah, that's not a miracle, and they're tough graders.
Oh yeah. Well, and years ago, when we opened the cause for canonization for our first Bishop Simon Brute, I was named by the Archbishop as the person to kind of be the point person in the diocese, and I would get letters of purported miracles, and they ranged the whole gamut from healings to one very memorable one was that they prayed to Bishop Simon Brute and were able to fill out the census form correctly.
Oh, wow. Well, it's a complicated form if you ever filled one out.
For that person, that may have been a bit of a miracle, but like I'm not going to forward that to Rome, right?
So the phrase "devil's advocate." Doesn't that come from the canonization process? It does.
That there's appointed in Rome a person whose job it is to argue against the sanctity or other reasons that a person should not be canonized, and that's a part of the fairness of the process, and to make sure the Vatican doesn't want to be embarrassed by canonizing somebody and then discovering they were a secret anti-Semitic or whatever, right? They want everything to be known ahead of time.
So let's forget about the satanic part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about the more pure miracles like Fatima, or maybe Padre Pio and his what was that? Where
Stigmata.
But where he could be in two places.
By location.
So when's the last time something like that happened in the world and it was actually taken seriously?
Well, I mean, do you know Father Peter? I mean, my assumption is things are happening now. We just may not know about it.
Well, and Fatima was in the 20th century.
Right. It wasn't that long ago, but it was kind of right on the edge of modern
so was
media.
Padre Pio.
Right. That's right. I don't know if there's video of him, but there's certainly plenty of photographs.
So there's a story I read about Monsignor John Esseff, who some of the listeners may have heard of. And so my understanding of him, he's a mystic. He heard my confession. It was incredible. I told Father Peter.
Was he the guy who told you that wasn't really your sin?
Yes.
I need that.
So this is on Discerning Hearts podcast. He talks about when he first is recommended to go and meet with Padre Pio back in the day. He is basically like with his family and sitting there, and Padre Pio walks in, and Monsignor says, Padre, and so on. And so he sees him leave and doesn't say anything, and says like to his family, "You're not going to say anything to him?" It's like, no, he comes and goes. We don't see him. He just basically by location. And it's like, wow. And so part of the story, and this part I think I read, St. Pio went up to Monsignor Esseff in a church because he wanted to see him, and he had a lot of people that did, right? So he stood in front of Monsignor Esseff and just stared at him, what he described as an eternity. And he asked later other people like how long it was several minutes or whatever, and just literally seeing through him in the sense of like everything. He goes, okay, and left and talked to him later, just that kind of sense. So, I mean, that isn't just like, 5 centuries ago and things like that. That was like in the last, probably 60 years or so.
Right.
So those kinds of things are happening. I assume they've always been rare.
Right.
I don't know. You read some things, you kind of feel like, I mean, Jesus was running into people in every village.
I think there's two things. Well, Jesus is Jesus. I mean, we can't.
Well, but he was constantly running into demoniacs.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, exorcists will tell you there's a huge number of people suffering from possession. I mean, any exorcist will tell you it seems to be on the rise, at least in people coming forward for the ministry of exorcism.
So is it more like the Screw Tape Letters, where it's more subtle? It's not like Reagan and The Exorcist?
But I also think, like, miracles, the church has always taught that miracles are given to us to increase our faith. Mm-hmm. But we also have, this was just in the gospel very recently, that Jesus, was it Sunday?
Fishes and loaves?
No, that was Sunday. But Jesus was preaching in Nazareth and was unable to do many miracles because of the lack of faith. Mm-hmm. And I think so there's this deep connection between faith and miracles that I think helps to explain why we don't have many showy miracles these days. The lack of faith, and that if miracles are to increase our faith, I think God is maybe saying, I don't want to definitively speak for God, but God is maybe saying, like, it's not going to help. Like, I could raise people from the dead and you still wouldn't believe.
Right. I think we are all inclined to believe that like we're reaching the tipping point where, like, oh, Armageddon's going to happen. Yeah. But for 2,000 years, people have believed that.
Also true. Right.
Well, and to that point, in Father Peter's too, there is this, lack of faith of where things are viewed with just like the relativism, maybe through science. And science is important for sure. But it is kind of where I wonder that with a lack of faith, do we also have a sense of missing some miracles, large or small, that occur?
Right.
And, to Tom's point, in the olden days, like centuries ago, it would have only been seen through the eyes of spirituality, through the faith. And which, I mean, it's easy in the contemporary sense to discount that. But, I mean, there's the combination of the faithful and to still try and work with that which we have. I mean, so the Catholic Church is very pro-science in the sense of, like, wanting to understand that to be helpful to people, too.
Well, and that's a fair point, because just because science can explain how something happened doesn't necessarily mean it's not miraculous, right?
Right. It's not independent from God. And so, but there's the other part, whether it's like naivete or this sense of, psychologically, this defense is called identification, but it's kind of where that, like, Tom is driving to work, and he sees this cloud off in the distance, and the sun is rising.
You've used this example before.
And so this cloud, and Tom knows that God made this cloud just for Tom, to have this God willing to say, I love you, Tom, hope you have a great day in the work that you're going to do. Well, God did make that, and that's still true, but it's a sense of how we also try and make it something which is overly personalized, that's only about us, too. And that's where, I mean, sometimes we kind of lose the forest of the trees.
And, I work a lot in discernment with seminarians or people thinking about going to seminary. And, I joke a lot that, people will have a bowl of chili for lunch and then decide God is telling them something. And I'm like, that is just the chili. Like, give it a couple of days and let's talk about it again. Because the more religiously oriented you are, the more you want something to be miraculous.
Well, and that's originally why the process for sainthood was stretched out, right?
Right.
Now, they kind of broke the rules for John Paul II.
And Mother Teresa.
Mm-hmm. But
that was very fast track.
But I think we all knew where that one was going.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I just, when I was reading that, I was just thinking, I wonder if this guy walked into John's office and said, hey, my neighbor in the cave next door was fighting 5 demons last night.
First of all, in the cave next door is like the red flag. That's right.
When he speaks that way, that's kind of...
Well, and to be fair, in the book, Athanasius kind of says people at the time thought he was a little crazy. Right. I mean, he wasn't living like other people.
No. But he was also, like, the late Roman Empire was so decadent and so chaotic that retreating to the desert had a certain sanity to it. You know, I know it's your dream.
I
right?
fantasize about it daily.
Right? If only your wife would come visit you regularly.
And the raven brings a loaf of bread.
But go home. Go back to her home.
Yeah.
Yeah, but throughout the Bible, though, there have been, certainly the Old Testament prophets as far as we're kind of crazy and in their own way, countercultural.
But there's stuff in the, certainly I'm not a physician, but there's stuff in the New Testament that you read and you think, that sounds kind of like they're having a seizure, right? Like talk about foaming at the mouth.
Well, and I think there is Scripture is inspired by God, but written by humans. And so if Jesus healed somebody from epilepsy or he cast a demon out of them, the end result is bringing that person to wholeness.
Yeah.
And does it really matter if it was one or the other?
Well, and we know translation matters.
Right.
Right? And there's a lot of nuance to language. So I am open to the possibility that simply healing and casting out of demons somehow got mixed up in the nuance in the translation.
Well, and that's a bigger point, because part of this is and I think the atheistic naysayers would probably say they would discount all of that for more like a scientific explanation, but we would know as Catholics it's all under God's providence.
Right.
So precision matters, but it's not always the most important point. Like, how do we understand it perfectly? Because human beings can't.
Right.
And we're not meant to.
This is the Eucharist, right? Like, we believe it is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus. Okay, a lot of ink was spilled over the centuries about trying to narrow that down in specificity, and ultimately all that matters is you believe that is the body, blood, soul, and divinity. It doesn't matter at what moment in the Eucharistic prayer. It doesn't matter by what mechanism God's grace is active. None of that ultimately matters. It's interesting, but what matters is this is the Eucharist. It is Christ, and I believe that, right?
Yes.
Well, what's always supported me in that belief is the parables, right? Like, Jesus didn't tell these stories thinking you're going to believe every word of what I just told you really happened. It's just a device to get an idea across.
Right.
Well, and even back then, the truth of the real presence and what Jesus says, people left, right? They said it was crazy. I mean, it's no different now. But to whom shall we go?
It was interesting. We had the National Eucharistic Congress recently.
Oh, okay.
And
really, I hadn't heard.
Listen to the episode before this.
Dear listener, they're so mean to me. So on the day when I wisely harnessed my resources and parked my car ahead of time, all I had time for was to grab something quick from one of the little stalls outside the convention center. So I'm waiting in line for my sausage, and these two men are talking
I think it's cute that you're using the time as an excuse. Right. And we all know you were eating the sausage. If you had 10 minutes or 3 hours, you were eating the sausage. It's okay.
These two gentlemen were animatedly talking in front of me, and their belief, their faith seemed to center around these kinds of things. Like, all they were talking about was miracles and apparitions, and they saw this as absolutely true, but two, as absolute confirmation of their faith in the Catholic Church. That these miraculous signs and wonders gave confidence to them to be Catholic. And I thought that was fascinating.
Really good.
Right?
See, I don't need that. Like, that's all kind of somewhat irrelevant to me.
Right.
It just doesn't matter.
Everybody's different, right? I mean, so like where we are, like in our faith journey, our spirituality, I mean, that's going to be different. But God works with us differently sometimes too.
Right.
is
I mean,
very-
outside of the miracles of our Lord, the church only says in approved miracles are potentially useful for your faith, but not dogmatic.
Mm-hmm.
So, if right now, Medjugorje is really popular, and the church has not ruled definitively on that at all. But if it's helpful, then okay.
A few years ago, so I have this tradition with mainly my younger son. We will get a book, an audio book, and we'll listen to it on the way to school every morning. And a few years ago, I got a book that was stories of saints, but it was all these saints you've never heard of before. And some of these stories, you're listening to, you're like, there's no way that happened.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, in France, very famously in the Middle Ages, there was somebody, probably the local noble person, infant in the bassinet, and a snake got into the room and was going to strangle the child, and the dog attacked the snake and saved the child's life. And the local populace proclaimed the dog a saint.
Oh, wow.
And there was a whole cultus around this dog. That when word reached Rome, they kind of said, absolutely not. But
well, you know about the Irish and St. Patrick and the snakes.
And driving the snakes out, right.
That's right. History is told by the historian. So
I mean, if it were me, I would have driven the Irish out. But, he settled for the snakes.
Wow.
So.
You and the sitting king.
Right.
Oh, wow. You must be English. Well, thank you for being with us. This was a good discussion.
Yeah. It was a discussion.
Kind of all over the place. So.
This reminds me of that scene in Billy Madison. He gives this big speech, and the principal says, "Mr. Madison, we are all dumber for having
Well, thank you for joining Catholic Gen X. Be sure to send us an email, give us a rating, anything to let us know what you think. And we hope you'll listen soon.
Send us
a
carrier
letter.
pigeon.
Right.
We don't anything.
Handwritten letters.
We'd like affirmation that somebody other than our spouses
That's right.
is listening to this.
Most of them.